to come scope out our system.
Yeah.
And we are live.
Which is cool because we're total rookies. But all right, hello everybody. Up for Success. Short hiatus. Took the family to Disney World, and we're back. And we're here with Tom Griffith. We were just talking about fishing the Kenai.
Yeah.
And your buddy. Now, are you fly fishing or gear fishing or both?
This was gear fishing.
It was gear fishing.
Yeah. So I love to fish. I don't hunt much considering our surroundings. I'm not a hunter, but I enjoy fishing. But I appreciate what has gone into this collection of animals and mounts.
I really want to fish Alaska really bad. There's I'm trying to remember the name of the river that my buddies go to every year. Nishiak.
Further down peninsula.
Yeah, I think so. And I guess it's similar like the Columbia River as far as size, but they catch 50, 60 fish a day during the season. They always go over 4th of July, which makes it hard to go. But
Yeah. Well, in the furthering of the conversation we were having about fishing, I went, just happened to be that the Kenai, by our standards here in the West, is actually a fairly short river. I was really surprised that it's not any big. It's very wide, a lot of volume, but it's just not a real long river. So most of the fish that you may catch are usually in on the current tide. So we didn't catch any big fish the days that we were on it. And, as I was telling you about my friend who lives locally right on the river, of course, the news I got is the day after I left, his 59-pound daughter boated a 60-pound fish. So, we caught some kings, very fresh, very nice fish, but not big,
So
15, 18-pounders.
very tide dependent.
Yeah, very much so.
And are there swings? Do you fish buoy 10 here and fish the mouth here
I've
much?
been out, I've not fished buoy 10 here. I've been out tuna fishing out that way, so I've never fished buoy 10.
I always wondered if the tide swings are similar. Do you know, living in Alaska, the tide swings are similar than here? Is it, like a 4-hour window? And is it on the incoming tide that's good there?
Correct.
Do you have any idea why that is? I've heard different theories for why the bite turns on incoming or outgoing or the transition.
I would tell you, for me, any type of saltwater fishery, I am not qualified to comment. I haven't done it enough. I'm not sophisticated enough. I have, all my life I've dabbled at fishing, I would say, just enough to figure out that I don't know nearly enough. When you meet the guys that, I should say the people who are, let's just say fishermen, I realize that I'm a hobbyist. So I do love to fish. I think, fly fishing, you mentioned that, what a great place that we live for fly fishing. So
Absolutely.
I know that for some people, they like to travel the world for fly fishing, but I feel like, oh my goodness, we have unbelievable fly fishing.
People travel from all over the world to fly fish here and salmon fish here. Well, we can change that really easily. We'll have to get you out. There's still some good fall fishing. But if you ever want to go salmon fishing, just give me a call.
Okay, well, for the record, I want to go.
Okay. Maybe next week. We'll see. But we right now, buoy 10's hot, and I think they closed it. I think it's closed. But we had a great buoy 10 season. So yesterday was awesome.
Yesterday was fun, wasn't it?
Let's introduce our guest
that's
properly.
I'm getting there.
Okay. Just making sure.
Normally what we do, Tom, is I say a few things I think you are, then you fill in where I'm
Great.
wrong or correct. And we've known each other since 2011, 12, I think.
I would say so.
And I was thinking about this on the way here, that I don't know a whole lot. Father, 2 daughters.
1 daughter, 1 son.
Wow, see? And former originator, top producer in the mortgage realm.
Correct.
And then at some point you changed gears to motivational speaking, coaching, personal development, and speaking. Is that correct?
Teaching, training,
and
coaching,
CRM
speaking.
is the other
Technology was a part of that, yes.
What am I missing?
Well, in the bigger picture, I guess, professionally, there's a lot of that. I've hustled my living for a long time. If people were to say, especially looking at me now, there's like, gee, Tom, tell us something that we would find amazing. Taekwondo black belt. Most people don't realize that.
Now, yesterday you called it TKD.
TKD, which is just the 3-letter abbreviation of Taekwondo.
Okay, gotcha.
So yes, TKD would probably, I think I probably shouldn't out of respect, but TKD just is the abbreviation for Taekwondo. So that was a process that was really important to me. That was actually a 40-year bucket list. The other part of that is that most people don't realize. For me, being a dad's a big deal. Husband's a big deal. I feel like, probably like everybody, I'm processing, trying to figure that out. Musician, recovering. I don't actively participate, but that was a big part of my life as well. Music matters to me. I believe that fundamentally, rhythm and harmony transcend human understanding. So to me, it blows me away all the time. And I would say that I'm an ensemble musician. Harmony matters, not soloing. I'm actually moved by music the most when the band says, that was amazing, as opposed to the audience saying, that was amazing. But in any ensemble, whether it's vocal or wind ensemble, orchestral ensemble, there's always that time, Cody, when even in rehearsal, actually, I've always found this more in rehearsal than in performance, but there's a time when the band says, that was awesome. That everybody, so that's a part of my life.
Say that again, because I'm a huge music fan too.
You just blew Cody's mind. He's wearing, he wears a music shirt every podcast.
I love that.
Yeah, this is the new 9 Inch Nails album cover.
Little 9 Inch Nails.
So, but you said music
rhythm and harmony transcend human understanding.
So explain that.
Across language barrier, across culture, if I was to create a beat, you could sense that beat, and you could be a part of that beat. And so rhythm transcends language barriers, etc. It's innate. I would say that rhythm is a part of life. So that to me is why in everything, rhythm is actually vocabulary. Rhythm is a capitalized word that we have to recognize. Rhythm. Harmony is actually the presence of two or more different frequencies, but they can come together again, not in the same language. If we were to say, well, I have to know your language in order to make music with you, that's just not true, right? Because we could make sound or even other sine wave type behaviors that we could harmonize, meaning we come together and actually create an overtone or more sound. So without making it a really big deal, I just feel like music is the one place that we could literally meet up of two different cultures in a third party area and immediately get each other.
Yeah, it totally makes sense to me. And you talk about being a father is important to you, and Ryan and I both have kids. I have a 5-year-old girl. And it's funny because at 6 months you could put on a song,
right,
and they would start bouncing to that beat. So
where's that come from?
Where's
right?
that come from?
Is that a learned behavior?
No way.
No way.
No, but maybe the harmony. I don't know, because lullabies and everything. I don't know. I wonder if harmony is a learned behavior or not. But for me, I love the opportunity to again say I don't know anything, but it's been a big part of my life all my life. And I almost, I believe harmony is not necessarily a learned behavior. Maybe the recognition of harmony versus dissonance. I guess so if you were to say to recognize harmony, you also have to recognize dissonance. So it exists in the ripples of our environment. If you are on the wind, in the water, everywhere there will be a ripple or that sine wave pattern of a frequency that you recognize and will either match or move towards. And meaning we'll hear a tone or see a ripple, and maybe it's a long, long ripple, but we can have faster ripples in between that augment that. Or I didn't think I'd be talking about this today, Cody, but that's to me is the so much of our experience is actually a rhythmic and harmonic experience. That just even as 3 guys sitting here, we're probably never going to be on the same exact frequency because that'd be weird, but we'll harmonize. And if we don't do well together, that's dissonant. And so with using that analogy, do you think that's something that people can work on or adapt to that frequency quicker in certain situations? Like in this situation, right? I already feel like we're getting a good rhythm and a good harmony down. Is that something that you can improve on recognizing?
I believe so. Yeah. And I believe in anything, we have to realize that everything has a heartbeat. The essence of life as we understand it, at least physically, and even in other things, there's a heartbeat. And so part of even of the getting together and doing well together is to recognize that whether it's energy, whatever, there's a heartbeat. And we have to start to match. And, and even as I sit here and talk about this, we could find this little rhythm that we'd all start saying, okay, I get that. And I think we do have to recognize in human interaction, every relationship has a heartbeat. And we have to be cognizant. And we actually are cognizant at a very deep level. We're aware of frequency, rhythm, harmony, dissonance.
When you're speaking, can you, for example, if you're sitting across one from one, you can tell how the conversation's going.
Mm-hmm.
When you're up speaking in front of hundreds or thousands of people, do you feel that? And as you're feeling it, can you kind of try to change it if it doesn't feel
Yeah, can you
right?
feel that harmony when you're the one person speaking? In front of a crowd?
Absolutely. So for me, and I can only speak for me, but I feel like I love the question, Ryan, but for me as the speaker, my primary job is actually to manage the energy of the room. It's not my words. It's not the script. It's not the clock. It's the management of the energy of the room. And for me, it's very tactile. And even, as I touch myself, see, I'm not doing this. It's not logical. It's very internal. It's a gut level. It's a heart issue. You sense it internally. So I do notice in every iteration of a presentation, whether it's one-on-one, one to a couple, one to a giant room, then to me, I'm always aware of the energy that's present.
So, it's scientifically proven that the human brain can't multitask, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're on stage, when you're focused on that, is that distracting from giving your presentation that you have memorized?
So I would say for me, that is so I guess let me back up and say when I go on stage or when I speak, that is not necessarily, while it's an element I'm extremely comfortable in, it's not my native element, meaning it's not my baseline personality. I am actually an introvert. I recover in private. I'm very comfortable in a quiet, alone type of environment. And so usually everything when I'm speaking is not that. So that's a character. That's a presenter mindset. So I have waypoints in the presentation. I'm always trying to keep track of generally what am I trying to do. I do start with a thematic overview. I do have, every time I step on stage, I have someplace I think we're going. And sometimes, Cody, that will change. And sometimes it doesn't. I mean, sometimes we go through, because, 999 times out of 1,000, that's what people are there for if you've presented it correctly. That's what they're there for. We follow a path. But I'm always course correcting. And so, when you say, does that get in the way or does that cause a problem with your presentation, I feel like for me, there are just chunks of what I want to cover. And as a matter of fact, even yesterday, I didn't cover a portion of the chunk because it just wasn't the right timing and I moved through it. I've never had one person come up to me as a result of yesterday's presentation, or I should say I've not had anybody come to me and say, hey man, we missed that chunk.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just, not right now. And so that's the way I tend to present. It doesn't distract from me at all as long as I feel like I have general chunks of what I'm going to say. Now for me, at this point in my life, in the mix, I could come up with a few chunks, even if it was on the spur of the moment. If I happen to be sitting in the audience and somebody said, we lost our speaker, can you do an hour? Sure, but that's only because I've done that, right? Mm-hmm. If it was the first time, it would be like, what would I say? So, that's why I guess I'm not as distracted at this point.
Well, and I would imagine that, like Taekwondo, the more you belt up, is that the right term?
Yeah, whether you advance.
Advance your belt level.
Rank advance, sure.
Recognizing the harmony in the room, probably the higher belt level you are, the more it takes place in your subconscious or in that limbic system. It'd be in that 90%. I'm just learning about the limbic system, thanks to Nick Batty. Oh. But it's kind of operating in the background, right? Would you agree with
structure,
that? Yeah.
Right? Some of the ones, why do we do certain things? Well, you're discovering part of the answer. Our brain is actually very old and does things in our subconscious level that we're not aware of.
But it sounds like it's something that you've thought about and worked on, is managing that harmony in your conversations and in the room and bringing that on stage with you.
I would say the answer is yes, and I just think it's, here's an anecdote for you that I learned, at least in, I learned my teaching master was a Korean master, so we had a chance to appreciate their perspective, and I would tell you the language
in Taekwondo?
In Taekwondo, yeah, so that, and an incredible human, an incredible athlete, an incredible martial artist. But what I learned in that process, so a component of your advancement in Taekwondo anyway, and other martial arts are different, but a component of that is sparring, meaning, you and I are going to spar together. And If I say sparring, typically in our culture, we think that means we're going to fight in a certain way. And so that comes with your limbic system then tells you something immediately, right? Your body changes, we're going to fight. Yet in Korean, sparring, the word most similar is harmony, because you can't learn
You're dancing.
without a partner. That's it exactly. There's no way to learn to spar by yourself. So the notion in Korean and in Taekwondo sparring, it's a dance. It's harmony. With you, we learn. And that was powerful for me because it's the goal of sparring is not I'll conquer you. Different than Olympic competition, there's a clear winner and there's a battle taking place. And this is a martial art, meaning this is a combat type of performance. But if you think about it, sparring is nothing more than we're working together to both get better, and we can't do that alone. And I just, harmony transcends human understanding once you start to really push into the issue.
Well, and everyone I talk to feels like as a society we're losing our skill of conversation, right? And that's really what conversation is. It's sparring. And we talked about this a lot on the podcast now, that if you sit in a bar and listen to other people talk, it's just two people talking about themselves, and they're not listening, they're not having that conversation like we are right now. And so I just got the phone with my coach, and doing this podcast, I've kind of redefined what work-life balance means to me. And I love your analogy or how you equate to Taekwondo affecting how you manage your harmony and everything in conversations with people, and especially the speaking, because this podcast is not about self-promotion. It's not about what we do for a career. We're doing it just for fun and to learn and sit down with people like yourself, people who have had a lot of success in one form or another. But doing this has improved my conversation skills and my selling skills and my listening skills, and directly affected work. And so I really like that Taekwondo sparring analogy, and then talking about how that affects your harmony in your skill level when you're speaking or when you're in a group setting like this. So,
did you feel like as you were going through your 40 years of Taekwondo that was...
Just to be clear, Ryan, it took me 40 years to realize it. I didn't do it for 40 years.
Oh, okay.
No, it was on my list for 40 years.
So how long did it actually take you to...
Well, the process of black belt took 3.5 years.
That's impressive.
that seems quick.
That seems really quick.
Yeah, I guess. Interesting perspective, right?
So during that 3.5 years, was that goal also essential in keeping you on track for your other work goals, family goals, life goals?
Yeah, so I would share with you a profound learning that I had in the evolution of black belt. And I think this is actually one of those things that matters more than ever, because we're talking about most martial arts are thousands of years old. And so here's what I learned. In the American way, we're brought in by these, in this case, let's just say in Taekwondo, because that's my only area of direct experience. But in Taekwondo, the sport is Korean. It's the Korean national sport. And they have done a great job of taking a alien philosophy, just meaning it's not American. It's not our culture. It's not quick and fast. They've done a great job of creating this process where they Americanize it, meaning you start up, you agree, you join. The goal is black belt, and we have these evolutions through belts. And it's very structured and it's very orderly, and you're told all along that the goal is black belt, that the goal is black belt. And so you're conditioned to believe we have to have a direction and a path, and we're conditioned to believe that that's the goal. We're going to get to black belt. And along the way, at least, and by the way, very few adults participate in Taekwondo in the way that I did. It's populated by young kids, because parents these days are freaked out and stressed out, and they need something to do with their children, so they enroll them in Taekwondo. But I believe, as I watched what's happening, and as I listened as best I could through a little bit of a language barrier with these Korean masters, that I started to realize there's a much, much bigger deal that's going on here. There's something much, much larger that's going on. Black belt, I don't think, is actually it. And then it was revealed to me, right at the black belt ceremony by and I would say this, the revelation was that you are now ready to learn. And the black belt is nothing more than, okay, now you're ready to learn. That the 3.5 years of evolution through, white belt, where you know nothing, through everything you think you know, gets you through the remedial education that you now know that just the foundations. You now know ABC 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's like learning how to read, and now you can
Correct.
go on to chapter books. And
Because the expectation is you're sold that you will arrive at black belt. And when you arrive at black belt, what I would say, not I would say, as you evolve through black belt as well, there comes a place where your title changes. Your title changes to master. And that very much resonates with me because mastery is also vocabulary. But I realized coming from these masters and even grandmasters, because at 7th degree, your title changes again, grandmaster. So masters teach black belts. Grandmasters teach masters. But what I heard that really set me free in the understanding was a 7th degree master, grandmaster, says to us, as we're sitting on the floor in the proper posture with our brand new black belts, we wear the same belt. Your belt and my belt are now the same. And even though, literally we would say, no, not worthy, the path and the process and the time it took between 1st degree black belt and 7th degree black belt is an enormous path. Enormous amount of time goes by. By the way, that time, just so that everybody can appreciate it, took 3.5 years to be a black belt. Your 2nd degree minimum requirement is it takes 2 years to the next degree. 3rd degree takes 3 years. 4th degree takes 4 years. 5th degree, 5, and so on. So
on top of the previous.
On top of all the others. So if you were to say master, 4th degree, that's 12 years of education for you to be considered a master. And what that means in Taekwondo, a black belt is not qualified to teach without a master. You can only teach at the pleasure and benefit of the master. You have to have a master in the dojang, the person who is responsible. But once you reach 4th degree, you're recognized as you now have mastered, and now it's evolution, right? So, but that whole thing to me really blew me away when I realized, so for 3.5 years, the goal was black belt, but now with black belt, I'm showing up to school for the first day because now I know ABC 1, 2, 3. When the master issues a command, my responsibility is I should know how to do that. That's what it's, whether it's a kicking technique or self-defense or hands technique, that's really all black belt is you can do the rudiments.
So where did you go from there? So you got your black belt, you have this new understanding. Where did you feel yourself at a crossroads?
I did.
I hit my goal and now I'm going to back down and away, or did you go, okay, I need to hit level 4.
Yeah.
So I have 12 years to go.
Right. So it was an enormous crossroads for me because the personal, I didn't grow up an athlete, and I'm awkward and I'm old, and I started this process 50. I started at 50, and I did it with my boy, by the way. My son and I did this entire this education and path together, which to me is the greatest achievement of all of it. So my boy and I started on day 1 together, and we were awarded a black belt on the same day. And for
awesome.
me,
That's really awesome.
it's that was actually the penultimate. I did find myself have another experience at almost 54 years of age going, wow, I thought I was climbing the mountain and I thought the view would be different. And I'm just going back to school. So what I meant by that is I didn't grow up as a well-trained athlete, so my body rebelled through this entire deal. Taekwondo is a young man's sport, and it is a contact sport, and it is very much a low body sport. It's a low body martial art, meaning the preponderance of what you do, or the bulk of what you do, is designed to be low body because you have so much more power than any hands technique. But in that process, for me, a couple of shoulder surgeries, a torn meniscus. So I'm 3 surgeries in trying to manage my physical self, which is not just, that it's just my package. And I really started out harshing on myself, saying, you should do better, do more push-ups, whatever it is. And it was very, very difficult for me. So I also, at black belt, I had this crossroads of what I was doing professionally was potentially changing. What I was doing personally was potentially changing. And I also knew at 54 plus, and I had watched 3 black belts come back after an extended layoff, come to class with me, and all 3 of them still have the mindset and the muscle memory of where they were, and all 3 of them destroy themselves in one class, where they literally, you tear a hamstring, you sprain yourself severely, those kinds of things where your body's just not able to come back. So I realized I was down to being on the road more, which meant I could go to class maybe 2 times a week, and I knew with full clarity in my own mind, I will end up back with my orthopedic surgeon, who I no longer want to be on a first-name basis with, or in some way healing because I'm torn up again. And because it's a combat sport, and you get hurt. And I don't want to hurt anymore.
How long ago was that?
That was a year ago, a little bit over a year ago.
And did you instantly become at peace with that decision?
No, I'm still struggling with it. And I'm still struggling with, in different towns. Here's one of those things that's really amazing to me is, out of the region, I went to go find another teacher. And I loved my teacher and my grandmaster, and we had a couple of 7th degree grandmasters. Well, in Puget Sound region, I found an 8th degree grandmaster. And by the way, the story is it will go to 9, but in order to be awarded a 9, well, there are no 10s, and most 9th degree black belts are dead. So this man's an 8th degree black belt. And I went in and had some chat, and let's do some class. And I always love the amazing nature of these guys. That just looking on him, he's not all put together. His uniform's sloppy. He looks like, he's got a hamburger belly. Looks like he should have a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And you just, you end up going, 8th degree? Until you see him move. And then you realize, oh. So, an interesting story, my Korean master, when I was still going to class, I said, I found this master, 8th degree, and my, Korean-born and educated man, he just went, oh, 8th degree. I could not even look on him out of respect, right? He was like, I cannot look him in the eye. This is a 4th degree world champion, toured representing the country of Korea for 5 years, right? Wow. He was chosen at that level to represent the country, and he literally says, I cannot look upon that master.
Wow.
And I feel like that's something in our society that we don't have that reverence anymore of, this is an 8th degree black belt in Taekwondo, meaning in that realm, this is a master. And there is a great deal of reverence and even very specific language in Korean and within Taekwondo, but in the Korean language of how you would recognize that person's mastery, that I am not worthy to look upon you. And I feel like in America we have this posture that says, no, I can do anything, I'm free, I have constitutional right and all that stuff, and just because we do doesn't mean we should. And so I went to class for a few times with the 8th degree, and I just realized this teacher teaches faster than my class, my master taught. And I really struggled. And there was also no communication. The group wasn't taught how to be harmonic together. There was just you had to be there in order to get it, and I realized it was very difficult for me to catch up, and it just wasn't the right deal for me. So I'm still really struggling with, I have a black belt, that's forever, but that doesn't mean I'm worthy to step on the mat right now and perform at that level. And to answer your question of 5 minutes ago, I still regret it, and I still want to be doing it, but I got to find a way to balance it, and I got to figure out how not to hurt, because as I'm talking to you about it, I'm touching my hips.
Yeah.
Dude, my hips were killing me for the last year and a half of the positions that I have to put myself in.
Can you replace Taekwondo with something else to get that same satisfaction in your personal life?
Yeah, I have to. I have to find another way to move, and I'm looking around at that. And in an offline conversation, Ryan and I were talking about that yesterday, of just what is it going to be next? Because, I believe that physical decline is actually a mindset. It's, yes, you have to move. Yes, you have to be active. but you have to have the mindset of saying, I'm simply going to do what I need to do to feel good. And so Taekwondo and especially the black belt process, there's 12 weeks leading up to the test that has certain physical commitments. I still do some of those, and it's amazing to me how that can still matter.
Well, be careful talking with Ryan and I too much, because you'll end up hunting and fishing.
Well, and I'm okay with that too. I mean, if there's a certain tug exercise, that will work. But I was only talking with Ryan just because for years we've had a conversation around sometimes you just got to do your push-ups. And,
well, he was bragging pretty hard before you walked in about how because you guys used to coach Ryan, correct? And he's like, Tom coached me, and then I coached him on doing 5 push-ups a day.
He asked me, walked up to me yesterday, and it's been at least 2 years or more, maybe more.
Well, yeah.
He just walked up to me, and his first sentence was, did you do your 5 push-ups? And I was proud to say I did 25. Wow. Right? So it's just, and that's actually one of those things for me is that I feel like you just have to do your push-ups, and I have taught that to many, many people in some of the coaching and teaching presentations. So and now I feel like I have put that forward enough. I need to do my push-ups.
Well, this is always a great time of year as a hunter to see everyone's hard work, right? Because I'm not a big game hunter. I do a lot of upland birds and waterfowl and that kind of stuff. But kind of like Taekwondo and having something that takes skills that intertwine with business, I really believe big game hunting's like that. Ryan's been working all year, getting ready for his elk hunt and deer hunt, and getting up at 4 in the morning, doing insane workouts every single day, getting all of his gear set up, doing all the research to have the right equipment, having some survival skills to be outside, navigation skills, going out and scouting. He's got cameras up right now. Is that right, Ryan?
Yeah, we just took them down.
You found them? No one stole them?
Yeah, no one stole them,
Good.
thank goodness.
And then in a couple weeks here, the work's really going to begin, right? And all that preparation for a year. And see, the reason I can't do it is because you're doing all this preparation with not being able to implement it until 12 months from now.
Right.
And so Ryan's got his hunt coming up in a couple weeks. And so I love this time of year because all my friends that hunt, I can see all this hard work they've done. I can see them implement it. So, so be careful because the hunting bug is, especially now with bow hunting becoming big and so many options and so many ways to do it. Be careful. Don't talk to us too much.
I respect that from you. I don't have at least I can honestly tell you I would fish at the drop of a hat, but I just don't. Big game hunting is not something that I'm aspiring to do right now. But I will fish anytime.
Well, I'm not committing to hunting big game next year, but I would like to get to a point, and I've never told Ryan this before, that I'm considering committing to getting in shape enough to hunt alongside, not hunt with Ryan, but go with him, at least scout with him. Ryan does these awesome scouts. He goes on a goat survey with a biologist friend of his for the last couple years. And not this last year, but the year before, up on Mount St. Helens, you hiked, 9 miles? 5 miles to camp and then a couple miles a day or something?
Yeah, no, it was more than that. But, I mean, not crazy by any stretch of the imagination, but it was some good hiking.
So just getting to the point where I could tag along and help him pack out an animal would be awesome. So making better happen. I got a few questions, but let's start with transitioning from becoming a really successful mortgage advisor, running a great practice, to transitioning to a different different stage in your career. And when did you come up with making better happen, and how did you make that jump? So
the black belt story, it relates directly to mortgage origination. And in the experience of the black belt story of, wow, I really thought it would be different from here. The reason that I began to teach and train and do outreach, or what became Making Better Happen, was 2006 was a year that we set out to climb a mountain. And we thematically began to climb our Everest climb. You know, I've never climbed a mountain, but everything that we could do within the practice was thematically going to climb. And we did that. And in the end of the year, I looked around, and it looked a lot like my hometown, even though we climbed the mountain, right? Metaphorically, you're at the top. I looked around and went, it looks just...
And you climbed that mountain during a blizzard, because in 2006, everything was starting to fall apart.
Yeah, a little bit later in my practice, 2007, we had another great big huge year, but the handwriting was on the wall.
Yeah.
And so I found myself saying, is that all there is? And by the way, that to me is just, is a memory of my dad. He had an album he used to play all the time. I want to say this gal, a Torch singer, for people that remember Torch music, but that was and I think it was Gogi Grant, maybe. Somebody'd have to fact check me here.
What's Torch music?
Torch music is typically a 40s and 50s woman in front of the orchestra singing ballads and
Okay.
songs of the heart. Those were torch songs, and meaning a lot of times women are carrying torches for men that are overseas, and that idea of but the song was, is that all there is? And it maybe even was a little bit later. I love that we're going to get some validation here too, but I found myself saying, I love that.
So a torch song is a sentimental love song, typically one in which the singer laments an unrequired loss
Unrequited,
or love.
yeah.
Unrequited loss or love. Either one party is oblivious to the existence of the other, where one party has moved on, or where a romantic affair has affected the relationship. Interesting.
Yeah, and so I heard the words of the lyric, "Is that all there is, my love?" And I looked around and I went, there has to be something. There has to be something more to this, because that was a lot of effort. And we did all these material things in business. We had the transactions and the money and all that stuff. And I found myself saying, is that all there is? There's got to be more. And I realized as I reflected, and by the way, we just on inertia, we did it again in 2007 because the team was built. We understood roles, responsibilities. We had a unique experience and a unique learning that we...
So I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yeah.
were you producing and managing your own company or your own
Correct.
branch? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was my role. Literally as a producer, I had 9 slots in my calendar in a week. Those slots were filled by other people. My job was to meet with people at the place of saying yes. And the practice had evolved to, in order to even be in that slot, there had to be the temperament and the ability to say yes. It was pretty much preconditioned at that point. So we ran that system even through 2007 as I was already starting to engage outwardly, meaning with the community at large and some of those people that have even been on your podcast. I mean, back at that time, I worked in harmony with Dave Savage and the Mortgage
Great.
Coach. What was the TCA Now was originally a spreadsheet, and some of the work we did back then. And I would say, hat tip to Dave Savage, because at that time he said, "Hey Tom, tell us your story," and that became an introduction to other people, and I began to fill a need which is the need to teach, to help people get from here to here, and I'll get to that, but that's really what drove me. I started out hustling up my own living at age 15. I started really early. I worked in essence full time going to high school. It's the reason I didn't go to college. I really enjoyed the development of somebody who says, how do I do that? How do I get from here to here in whatever way that is? And so I realized as I was leaving Origination, I was moving towards this teaching, training, coaching. And I had some extraordinary mentors at that time. And in the business, Todd Ballinger, Dave Savage, and others. Many other people invested in me, and they still are influential in the business today. Some of my best relationships today came from that time. But I realized, Cody, that what really turns my crank at that time was somebody engaging with me saying, I think I can do better, and I think you can help me. And that's what really charged me up. I mean, frankly, I didn't need another deal. I didn't need these giant goals in the industry or in sales anymore, because I felt like I'd already done way more than I ever thought I was going to do. So the distilling of that message is I'd already climbed the mountain, but I still wanted to go up the mountain with people that wanted to climb. and I know full well I'm reaching the point where I'm now not going to climb, but I'm going to watch people that I've worked with climb and take others.
Okay, I have two questions.
All right.
One was, when you started having this idea, what was your confidence level like? And the second question is, from idea to implementation, how long was that?
So what I learned at that time, second question, first answer, idea to implementation, to me, first, it got a lot faster. And it was because I learned this process that we created a name for it. And I was taught the name of course correction, right? The purpose for action is to course correct. And I believed, like most people believe, the purpose for action is to win or be right. And that's actually what delays us. We decide that we have to take action in order to be right. But the real purpose for action is for feedback so we can course correct, meaning we deviate. So the purpose for action is to narrow our deviation. And that word that I was taught was the word veritas, which is actually, the word exists in a lot of different realms. Veritas is mythological. Veritas, I want to say, is actually in mythology as the daughter of truth, Hera, potentially. I love it that we'll get the definition, but here's the definition that mattered to me. It's actually Harvard's definition or motto on their crest. Their crest, Harvard's crest, by the way, for all your listeners, we can save the Harvard education now because this is all it is. And they define it as veritas is the, now I'm distracted by this, but Harvard's definition is their purpose, or they exist to systematically narrow our deviation from the left and the right, or to the left and to the right, from the star by which we guide that's so delicately reflected on the sea of life. End of quote. So Harvard's purpose is to help you get clear about what you want and then narrow your deviation from where you want to go. And that is a long answer to, I got really quick about idea to execution. I got really quick because all it was is let go of all judgment and all shame and simply take action for feedback and ask, did it move us in the direction we want to go or away from where we want to go? And just course correct. No judgment, no shame. Most people will say, I won or I lost. And there is no win or lose.
So part of your motivation of implementing or acting quickly is to improve.
Correct.
So
Are we moving in the direction we want to go or not?
And this ties in with Doug Mendenhall, and what he says is to take risks.
Exactly.
And it takes, he's figured out it takes about 5 risks until you get down to, you got your first iteration, your second. He's just talking about course correcting. So
By the 5th iteration, you should have a success.
Correct. His message of get to 5 as fast as possible, right?
Exactly.
And by the way, another great podcast guest. I noticed he was number 1.
He was.
I would tell you what a great number 1. I love that guy.
It was
I mean, I
awesome.
love Doug's message, and I feel like Doug and I may have had the same parent, the same DNA, different language, different experience set, but he's so good at saying, okay, well, let's, iteration, iterate. So for me, that was, how quickly can we get there? The answer is incredibly quickly if we let go of judgment and shame, because most people get mired down in this quote of, I'm fixin' to, which is what, and that's the end of the quote, I'm fixin' to. If we use, I'm a hillbilly, right? My family's from Appalachia, so I can use some of that weird language. But if the concept of I'm fixin' to, it's just like what you said. I'm thinking about maybe considering getting ready to follow Ryan around the woods. That's like saying, I'm fixing to follow Ryan around, but you're not actually doing it.
Yeah, that's why I was really careful to say I'm considering committing.
I'm fixing to. So that's my answer. And I would tell you that I answered the second question first and forgot the first question second.
Oh, your confidence level.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that answers both.
Well, and to a certain extent it does, because if you enter, for me, and I love these conversations where I feel like I can say to people, I'm profoundly insecure. I'm an introvert because I'm profoundly insecure. So that was a real issue to me because I was afraid of being wrong. And I felt like the way to win is be right. But the way to win is just get what you want. So you have to let go of judgment and shame. And so my confidence level was influenced by letting go of the notion of I have to be right. And I also had to let go of macro commitment, and meaning I'm going to climb the mountain. If I really dumb this down, the mountain is 29,000 feet high. I have to start with step one. And how do I get step one so simple I can't not do it, right? And that, to me, is part of the achievement process of making better happen, is the recognition of this is important, but what's important is, did we do the first step, yes or no?
Well, and that just takes us back to, what you talked about yesterday, and it's about losing business out of your own database and breaking it down so simply that it's just do one simple thing and you're going to see drastic improvements. Take an easy step, basically.
First step possible.
And one thing I don't want to get lost here is that you had achieved high level of success within the mortgage industry. And along with that came a lot of financial success, I would imagine, which sets you up to be able to do things like take a risk and change your career or start something new, right? Where a lot of people that have made lots of money make a career change or start a nonprofit or do something where they really find their purpose in life. But without having that financial success, it makes it very difficult to do that. Would you agree with that statement?
I do, with a condition, and that is I do, and as a matter of fact, I ended up in the origination business because I had the financial ability to survive. And so I made the decision years and years ago to even get in the business based on, I got some dough, I can survive, let's do this. As I began to transition, I thought, I got some dough, I can support it, my practice is running, I got 9 slots a week, I have some time, that's all true. And then I watched with great interest of your conversation with Dave Savage, because Dave and I, at the time, we're actually, may still be today. We don't hang out, but we live really close together. And I watched, in this way, I bring up Dave Savage again, he had a conversation about the meltdown, right? That times got hard. My story was the same. I had almost 15,000 square feet of commercial space across 3 different states with 0 revenue. I mean, the market stopped. It didn't slow down. It stopped. And there was the time when we all realized, oh, well, this is going past 0 for a period of time. And so in that, it sealed for me, I'm out. I'm not going to do this, and I didn't have a springboard. And we did have to go to even the very most basic fundamental teachings I had to apply to myself, and I had to share even with my wife. And I would say that giant success. I'm still married today through a really difficult time when a lot of people didn't make it, because you get exposed when you take away the bandage of money. And so, I would tell you that 2006, unbelievable year. I never thought I'd make that much money in my life. 2007, darn near the same. 2008, not the same, right? 2009, holy cow, what are we going to do here? Because I had committed to a different path. And one of those things, just last night, my wife and I were talking about an opportunity that was presented at that time.
Come on in, Emery.
An opportunity in, I would say, 2010 to come back to the industry in partnership with somebody I admire. I mean, that we still know today. I'm not going to out anything, but an opportunity to come back and say, just do this with me. And I said, no, I have to do this thing. Yet, had I just done that path, again, it would have been right back to very successful branch management and tons of money and, whatever. I didn't do it because I was committed to the development, the movement from we're here to here is what excites me.
Interesting. So, hey, Emery. Emery's coming on next. You're gonna like him a lot.
I love it.
Talk about accomplishing something crazy. This guy just got done doing the Pacific Crest Trail.
That's what you said. That's an amazing deal. I love that.
Well, I really like that answer for a couple different reasons. And one theme that's been kind of ongoing throughout this podcast with talking with people is the economic collapse caused by the mortgage industry, I think is responsible for a lot of people coming back stronger and a lot of industries coming back stronger. Because I've talked to a lot of people that lost a lot during that crash. And now these people are coming back seasoned, wounded, and they are killing it. You see companies like Uber, and you see all these new startups in the technology and everything. And I think a lot of that has to do with going through a really hard couple years as a country.
I think, couldn't resonate with you more. And my analogy to that is that pre-bust, right? Pre-GFC, the global financial crisis meltdown, whatever we call it. We had this generation of people. They still live today, but those were the people, like my parents, who lived in the Depression.
Yep.
And we would have said during that, up until the bust, we were like, these people really have this outmoded Depression-era mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell you now, scar tissue is a real deal, right? So now I appreciate, my family grew up in Appalachia. My grandfather had a great job with AT&T, so he worked through the Depression. But coal mining town, and my father said to me, his mother and father would give him and his brother a nickel to go stand in a bread line. And, that recognition of, I didn't get that until my wife and I sat around asking, what are we going to do here? Where you realize there's no piggy bank, there's nothing to break, all you have is your ability to hustle. What are we going to do here? Just like I could imagine people in the Depression, you can't get gas, you can't get food. What are you going to do here? And so I think scar tissue is real in that now we have a whole new generation of people that have lived through it again. And I would say that it is extremely valuable for those that catch that message. Maybe now we'll keep some powder dry. Maybe now we'll fight against consumerism. We're not. We're not doing well, but there's still hope, right? I'm with you. I see a lot of people, making way more money. We've moved past in a lot of ways, and these are like charts, right? Lots of charts say we've advanced financially past the GFC, but we're still not saving any real money. We're still not doing anything major.
And you're starting to see the same things happen. People make the same mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
one thing I wanted to ask, when you talked about climbing the mountain,
mm-hmm.
it resonated with me with anybody on any journey for that matter, where say a weight loss journey.
Mm-hmm.
I need to lose 60 pounds. You lose 60 pounds. You lose that 60 pounds, and you don't actually feel any different. You don't
mm-hmm.
feel like you thought you were going to feel. So relating that to what you said, and then, this is the hunt for success. So how has your definition of success evolved through, being a shoe salesman, being,
You were a shoe salesman?
Started out as a shoe dog.
At Nordstrom's?
No, I started out at a place called Birch's Fine Footwear, which was the evolution of Phil Knight's company in Eugene, Oregon. So if you read the book Shoe Dog, I lived that.
Really?
Yeah, I started in the 70s.
Shoe Dog. Well, I'll bring that with me on our trip next week.
Phil Knight, Shoe Dog, great read. So there's a book plug, but Shoe Dog is a great story. And for me, it's also great because it was my life in Eugene. Bowerman still drove around in Eugene in the 70s. So
Bowerman was the official title for a shoe salesman?
Bill Bowerman.
No, Bill Bowerman was Phil Knight's partner.
Head track and field cross country coach at University of Oregon.
Yeah, Bowerman is
He's
godlike
Yeah.
in the track community.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
He's
more
got-
than Phil.
He's got a statue there at the track, and he's a big time.
I would, Ryan, to answer your question, if your goal is money, you will always be unfulfilled. You will always sing the song, is that all there is? Because in my opinion, money, at least for me, money is the ever so much more so pill. If you're whatever, fill in the blank, and presented with more money, you will be the evolution of that. You will be further down the path of that. That's why people who are broke that get a whole bunch of money tend to be broke again pretty quickly. Why? Because they are broke, right? That's who they are. I think the evolution is always fulfillment, right? You've got to move away from achievement. And this is me knocking on the door on my 55th birthday. I've been doing this almost 40 years. This is my path. And this was 2007. 2006 was a year of extraordinary achievement, but I wasn't fulfilled. And I couldn't even articulate that to you at that time. But the concept was I need to move towards fulfillment. And in the depths of, I want to say it was 2009 or early 2010, when presented with the opportunity to come back, that was it. It was like, that will solve money, but I will not be happy doing that, and it will only be a period of time until I'm not doing it again. And so I'm not fulfilled. And I think If we put that in perspective for everyone, I've not read the study, but I know it was a thing, right? And putting aside whether it really happened or not, there's an extraordinarily exclusive club in this world, and that would be the Astronauts Club, right? I think there's, 16 guys? 16 guys, they say, have seen the Earth rise from the moon, right? The view that nobody's seen. The Earth rise from the moon, 16 guys, and universally, they came back saying, man, now what? I mean, talk about a lifetime of work. I kicked around and bounced in zero gravity. I'm back. Now what? Stockbroker? Fly jet planes? I flew the lunar module. Whatever it is. If you think about the dude who flew Apollo 13 back, couldn't tell you his name right now. All I remember is the mission commander that says failure is not an option. Right?
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, definitely Tom
Hanks. But he had another name, right? But all I'm saying is fulfillment. What we realized as a country even at that time is we didn't prepare those people for the next step after you've climbed the mountain. What will you do after that? Because if we're always conditioned to climb, well, after you've climbed the highest mountain, then what? And so I think that the answer is everybody should get so much more clear, the star by which we guide, today about what you want. What makes you happy? What is it you really want based on everything you know right now? No judgment, no shame. You don't have to be right. What do you want that you would say, that makes me happy? Because most of us as a society, and I would just say as English-speaking Americans, we're focused on external things we've been conditioned to achieve for, which for most of us, we're not motivated by that, really. And so, not achievement anymore, fulfillment. And that was the evolution that started in 2000. At the end of the mortgage business was, I got to get happy because I made a pile of money. And we closed a lot of loans, built a great team. Is that all there is?
Yeah.
So that's the work now.
Well, I really like that answer, and I think everyone listening will be able to relate to that and within their industry and what they're doing.
Yeah, I think it's universal. I believe it goes across all industry.
What would your grandfather and dad say? Would they agree with you? Because that generation, it was, well, all that's great. Now go to work and make some money, right? Work hard. My parents always used to say, you're never going to love your job, right? You're not supposed to like your job.
Right.
You got to work hard.
It's called work.
It's called work, right? Right. So maybe we live in a time in our society where we have that luxury of looking for fulfillment rather than working our ass off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not that the two don't go hand in hand, because they absolutely do.
Mm-hmm.
But what would you think your dad and grandfather would say?
So I didn't get a chance to spend a lot of time with my granddad, and but my dad, so I would say that I learned at an early age, and plus I was a kid of the early 60s, so there was still part of that hard work ethos that existed. The notion of it's your responsibility to give more than you were hired for, meaning show up early, work hard all day, don't give up, do a good job, meaning don't mail it in, do the best you can. That was conditioned in my dad, or from my father in me forever, but not a zealot, he wasn't sold out, but he was always, the commentary was, don't be the guy that's leaning on the shovel. Don't be the guy who is just mailing it in. You're responsible to do your best.
Take some pride in your work ethic.
Absolutely. And work ethic was a conversation that he defined. I mean, he defined that you will work. That's what you do. And I feel very fortunate, by the way, that as a high school student, and my dad spent 14 years in secondary education, so he was a believer in college, right? He spent 14 years in college. He made it very clear to me. He said, listen, when you graduate from high school, son, I love you and whatever, but there's three things that are going to happen when you graduate. And that is you are going to go get a job and live here and pay rent. You're going to go get a job and live on your own, in which case you're out of my house. Or you're going to go to school and be a good student, and as long as you are, I will support you. But you're not going to lay on my couch and not work. I'm just not going to let you do it. So just so you know, and, he told me that well in advance. And the metaphor that he gave is, at graduation, there's a lunch bucket and a suitcase on the porch. Pick one. And so for me, I've told that story to other people, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so harsh. And I felt like I was clarifying.
Yeah.
It was very clear. And even my wife, we had conversations in her family of like, that's the cruelest thing ever. But, we had a family member who wasn't given that clarity, and they floundered for 10 years, moving in and out of home, and mom's making sandwiches for grown-ass men. And I'm like, no, we got to take care of this stuff ourselves. So that, to me, was part of that work ethic that was influenced by the Depression. I mean, there are other cats that will take your job if you're not willing to work. And unfortunately, that's gone in our society right now. And that's, for me, I feel like this is the opportunity for everybody. As sad as it is in America, again, no politics, no judgment, no shame. My definition, I like cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry, right? Nothing's perfect here, but this is the cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry. The truth of the matter is the bar is so low, people will tunnel under it right now. So if you're willing to simply step over, you're going to advance. You're going to rise. You're going to shine. And I feel like to work anymore is not even hard. It used to be 6 days, 15 hours. I feel like if you put in an honest 25 right now, you're outworking everybody else.
Absolutely.
The bar is low, man. And so I don't mean to get myself worked up, but that's just the way I see it. People don't know how to work. They have no idea what work means anymore.
I think people are at least the people I surround myself with, all feel the same way.
Definitely.
And I don't mean to, I would want your listeners to know, I don't mean everybody, right? We see the outliers, and I know there are a multitude of people who get up early, stay up late.
But it's
and
our
they work
cultural
hard.
mindset,
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
is.
Right?
How do I get more for less
Yeah.
has become different than, never thought I'd say this, but the Kennedy quote was, ask not what my country can do for me, but what can I do for my country? We've lost that.
Yeah. Well, and you look at other countries, and I may be called stereotyping, but like a lot of people feel that way about Japan now, right? Their culture and their work ethic and the way they raise their kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of sad that as a country we've lost that reputation in the world, I think.
I think we're laughed at, frankly.
Yeah.
I think they look at us and go, they're soft and we will kill you.
Yeah.
So we will just outwork you. That's all it is.
How do we fix it? I don't know. Maybe it starts with the generations that are having kids now, like Ryan and I, going through the collapse and then raising our kids the right way. And Ryan and I, we're good friends and we work together and we talk about it all the time and share stories of starting with making your kid clean your room.
Right.
Ryan was talking about it. Wake up every day and make your bed with make your 5-year-old's bed with them, and instill that at a young age. And maybe the next generation, people that are sitting here having a conversation like this, we've kind of our generation's impacted the culture, hopefully.
There's an opportunity for us to do that, right? I agree with you. Even looking back now, my daughter's 18 years old. She's making college plans and application. It's almost like, okay, well, the foundation has been set. She chose to be very diligent. My boy, 16 years old, has chosen not to be very diligent. He's, and by the way, I think it is the evolution of my dad saying, someday I hope you have a son exactly like you. Right? So may that be your blessing, son. Yeah. And so I now have a boy who's just like me, in that he's in an age right now where cleaning his room and doing his work and all that sort of stuff. Oh, that last night, he used boring in a sentence probably 10 times. Just, I'm bored, this is boring, I don't want to do it, it's such a boring, blah, blah, blah. And I've already exhausted myself with, no, man, you're going to get up and do it until we reach the point of I'm going to crush you to do it. That's not fulfilling and isn't going to work. And that was part of my testimony of my relationship with my dad, and I just never wanted to be that with my boy. But the evolution of that is he'll still leave crap on his floor, and there's a lot of that story that is a very, very painful memory from my childhood, to where I literally shared the story with him of every time I see your room, it reminds me of one of the worst memories I have. That's what your messy room does for me. Pick up your stuff. And he still doesn't do it.
Well, my dad comes over to my house at least once a week, and he comes over and he sits there on the couch and has a big grin ear to ear, because he's sitting there watching me get tortured by our 5-year-old little girl. And she's really, really good, but she tortures me, and my dad, I can tell, he hasn't said it, but I can tell he gets a tremendous amount of enjoyment.
That's the only reason he comes over.
That's why he's there, is just to watch it play out. Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of stories there. But so making better happen.
Yeah.
How you talked briefly about
Sure.
having the idea of the company and the direction you wanted to go. How'd you get that name? Where are you at today, and where are you going?
Cool. And so the name came about, interestingly, I created a lot of iterations of what is this, and words matter to me. I'm actually prefacing this whole deal with the language and words actually matter, because what I've known, or what I've come to know now, when people say, how do I, to me, what they're actually saying is, what do I say? Right? I'm not an engineer. I don't do physical product, so people don't come to me and say, Tom, how do I? And I would provide them a roadmap or a structure or anything like that. What do I say? So in the context of making better happen, as we transitioned, I listened to my wife say to a person one time, they say, what does your hubby do? And she starts to go, well, because I was teaching, I was training, coaching, but I wasn't an originator anymore. And I'd always been a sales guy from the time I was 15 years old, a manager too, but you're just a sales guy. So that was easy for her. But when I quit doing that, this question was posed to my wife, what does your hubby do? And she's like, well, you'd have to ask him. She couldn't even articulate. And I just happened to say, I'm pretty passionate when somebody says to me, I'm here and I want to get to here. They say, I want to make better happen in my life. I'm pretty passionate about helping them do that, because I'm really good at that, and I actually believe there's a simple science to that. So Cody, the long answer is, I just said it a few times. I'm really passionate about this process of making better happen, and so I just rebranded the company. Even though it's kind of goofy, what do you mean making better happen? And my answer to that is, everybody in whatever area would say, I'm here. We generally hold our hand around our belt, and we say we want to get to here. And that can be in business, in money, in our family, in our relationships, in our self, right? My physical self, I need to lose 40 pounds. That's making better. I'm here, I want to get to here. You can maybe do it backwards. I'm here, I want to get to here. That's weight loss, right? And all of that is the story of my life. That's my tapestry. I mean, I've been very broken in many of those things, in business, money, family, relationships, self. I mean, I've been there. And I am very passionate to help people begin to simply start making better happen. And to me, I'm going back to the statement of, I want to give people the words, because as we talked about, one of the things you can work on is what you say, the words we say to each other, and the words we say to ourselves. And typically, the process of change, near as I can tell, again, I'm not an expert, I've just been at it a long time, the process of change begins with the clear articulation of the obvious truth. And that's my distillation of even Veritas, Harvard's motto, get clear about what you want, right? The star by which you guide, systematically narrow. So many people in recovery, and I mean, as a 12-step process, people are surprised to know that's a part of my life. And sometimes they would say, Tom, you'd never know my pain. I'm like, try me out, right? I mean, but step one begins with the articulation. Again, the words, I admit that I have a problem, I'm powerless. I admit it's a spoken articulation. So for me, the process of making better happen begins with the clear admission of the obvious truth, and the next iteration is, based on what you don't want, tell me what you do want. And it's not that you need to tell me, Cody, it's that you have to tell yourself. So it all begins with words. The process to me of making better happen is the articulation of what I want, so that we can simply move to quick action. 5 iterations, according to Doug. For me, it's 3 wins quickly. That's my language of, you got to win 3 times, because even other people in the personal development realm would say you've got to get momentum on your side. All that's true. That, by the way, in my sharing of my life, there's a word for that. It's called inertia. That's a vocabulary word for me, is inertia. You got to build inertia. Most people we are all in motion. No one's static. We're all in motion. And in order to create change, we have to do business with inertia. It's actually the victory, by the way. Inertia is the victory. But so I'm going really fast here on what is really content. But the story of making better happen was, I believe that people will say, I want a better business. Okay, cool. That's actually very simple. But the reason you don't have a better business is buried someplace else. And so the clear articulation is, if you had a better business, what would you have then? And most people would say, well, duh, more money.
Yeah.
Right? So then the next question is, Cody, if you had more money, what would you spend it on? What would you do with that money? And most people haven't thought that far forward. But what I believe, again, just in experience, we'll spend that money on family, relationships, and self. So we have to make the emotional connection. I work for money to have, and fill in the blank. But those are all words. And so when people come to me and say, how do I believe they're asking me for words. That's all I know. So the process of making better happen is, and now what we've built in making better happen is strategy, content, tools, and training to help people say, I'm here and I want to go to here. And in that virtuous circle, business, money, family, relationships, self, I would tell you it works in either direction, in or anywhere. Just like I heard a ton of testimony when we were together yesterday of 3 fellas who started to tell me, my business is blown up. Why is that? Because combined we've lost 158 pounds, right? So, and that's part of my story of I just couldn't talk about making better happen on stage anymore as fluffy, right? I was 240 pounds, blowing out 38s, realizing I got to go buy something that begins with a 40. Enough. I'm not going to do that anymore. And I had to tell myself, I had to begin to say, what is the best outcome possible? What do I say to myself that I believe? And we began to create a new way of teaching and training and coaching. And so
I love that. I love giving people like myself the words or tools, words to say to yourself. I think that's a big thing. And that's something that maybe I've gotten away from a little bit, is that self-affirmations. Are you a believer in self-affirmations?
I'm so much a believer that I would tell it this way, you know, that one of the things we can work on, if number 1 is mindset, number 3 is actions, number 2 is the things we say or conversations, right? We can work on conversations. I believe the most powerful influence in our lives, I was going to say you, but I don't want it to be too intense. For all of us, the most powerful influence in our life is what we say to ourselves that we believe. What we say to ourselves that we believe. And most people don't evaluate that. Most people don't have a framework to evaluate that. But I would tell you that everything, near as I can tell, again, I'm just Tom, right? I'm not an expert, is what I'm saying. But everything we have attracted to ourselves today is the result of what we've said to ourselves that we believe.
How cool would it be, and I don't think we're too far from this, is having the technology to record your thoughts, right? I mean, imagine if you could, unknowing, record what you're saying to yourself and then play that back. And I wonder, I'm just putting myself in that position, if I'd be shocked at what I'm saying to myself.
I think we all would. We have to listen. And I mean, for me, this is not new, right? I haven't developed anything new. I think the origin of some of that, what we say to ourselves that we believe. I mean, Henry Ford was the guy that said, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. It was Earl Nightingale that said, it is the strangest secret. We tend to become that which we think about. So for me, I just want to be clear that the most powerful influence in your life is what you say to yourself that you believe. I could never do that, right? If that as a quote, oh, I could never do that. Ironically, that's true.
You never will.
Oh, we can do that. Ironically, that's true. And so I think we have to become, this isn't militant and corrective. All change begins with awareness, right? Just become aware of what you're saying to yourself that you believe. And for me, I've had to have people like what you're saying. I've submitted myself to people who listen to my jive, for lack of a better word, right? I'm a persuasive. I believe I'm pretty persuasive. I've persuaded myself. And I've had people who I allowed them to say to me, is that absolutely true, Tom? Because here's what you said. Is that true? Can you even know that's true? What if it wasn't true? What would that sound like? Can you show me any evidence in your life that the opposite statement is actually true? So, you know, and that to me was the metaphor, was the mind blow, that I just went, holy crap. And I've spent my late 40s and my early 50s, evaluating, for lack of a better word, the shit I bought and believed and said to myself over and over again because of, and I would say this positive and negative, because of parents, teachers, mentors, people you work with, talking heads, books you read. I just want people to become intentional about what they think and what they say. And by the way, when you said, wouldn't it be cool if we could record your thoughts? All of us interpret our thoughts typically. Let me say it another way. I believe most of us interpret our thoughts as words. So words matter. We make association through vocabulary. So for me, words matter. And I want to help everybody tell a different story. Tell the story of what you want. To evaluate in total freedom. That's what matters to me.
And like the harmony we talked about in the beginning, that's something you have to work on.
Mm-hmm. You have
right?
to be aware.
You have to practice and exercise that to get better at it, right?
Yeah, course correct.
You said inertia is the victory. What did you mean?
So inertia is the victory. So most people, if we understand Newtonian physics, and I say a body at rest tends to what?
Stay at rest.
A body in motion tends to stay in motion,
Yeah,
right?
thanks for that commercial.
Right, it is.
Okay.
There, I just noticed the other day, there's a
Yeah.
commercial on Newton's first law.
Yeah.
So that's the physical understanding of inertia. But I want to help us, my definition of inertia is a little bit different in that Newtonian physics doesn't make sense in personal development, except it does. And that is that the problem, so this is my quote, and this is, I learned from my mentor, Todd, the problem becomes the solution when results start to compound. And what do I mean by that?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, the problem is actually the solution when the results start to compound. So inertia, let's just take money. Money's a great, easy way because we can measure, right? Pennies and dollars and that sort of stuff. And so if you were to say, Tom, what's the biggest problem with money in this country, or what could we all do right now to have more money? Well, it's so obvious. Number one, stop spending more than you make. That's hard. So let's set that aside and let's say we can begin to tell a new story, because most people say to themselves, I never have enough money, I can never save money. Those are the words, so they don't. But if we can start to say, I can save money. I saved a penny. So inertia, in this case, their inertia is I can save no money, I'm totally unsuccessful with money, I never have money, I live in constant scarcity. Those are all reinforcements of an ideal around money. I don't have money, I can't save money. Until we do save money. But they're told, well, you got to save $250 for retirement. Well, they don't have $250 because, you know, these things are $2 to $8.
Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. By the way, that's the cheap one. And sorry, Ryan. But here's the deal. We save one penny, and then we save another penny, and then we save another penny, and then we earn some interest, right? And I mean, these are metaphors for tiny chunks. So simple, you can't not do it. So the problem was I don't have any money until I get a tiny, tiny amount of money, and the inertia begins to build where you're saying, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And for me, that's 3 wins quickly. We have to be able to say, in inertia, we're on a course until we begin to subtly act and do something slightly different. So inertia is the problem. I'm on a path that I don't want on. That becomes the solution when the results start to compound, meaning I'm going to start turning this giant ship. But you're never going to take a Yui. The lottery winner is never prepared mentally to have money. They're prepared to fail.
I'm prepared to be that person.
I love it, right? I'm prepared, just saying. So, but I'm the guy who says, I'm totally prepared and I never buy a ticket. So with that said, that's what I mean by inertia. It can be the same in personal development, in your physical self. You know, it's like, doctor says I need to do 10 push-ups, can't do push-ups. Okay, well, inertia says, let's start with what you can do. Maybe we need to stand against the wall and do 1. Can we do that? Life depending on it, can we do that? Simply start. And I know I'm really, I feel cognizant that I may be pushing for time here, but the conversation for me with everybody is don't overthink this and don't set yourself up for this ideal that somebody has told you. Let's simply start with 1 push-up on the wall if we need to, instead of, the ideal that years ago Ryan said to me, well, every time I go past the bathtub, I put my feet on the edge of the bathtub and I do them inverted. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Let's get there one day. And so, but nobody can start there, right?
Yeah.
there's too much inertia in another direction. But now Ryan's story is, I can do 75 inverted push-ups off the bathtub, and I do it every time I walk past the tub. That's now his inertia path, and that also now has dictated his business, his money, his family, and his relationships, because he has a new story to tell. And maybe that's fulfilling for him.
Well, and I told you to start with 5.
Right?
And you did that, and now you're a black belt. So
Look what happened, right?
I'm going to take some credit there.
Well, yeah, and now you're a black belt and you're just getting started according to the Taekwondo.
Right? It's grade school. This is first grade.
Congratulations.
So how can people get in contact with you? What kind of services can people ask you for? What can you provide people? And now's your time to plug.
I love that.
Plug
Well,
away.
first of all,
and help us pull up the right website.
well, there are several different in iteration right now. That old, I would tell you that the best way to reach me is tom@mbhappen, like makingbetterhappen.com. Simple email. tom@mbhappen.com. And that website will probably redirect to the old Making Better Happen site. So what can we do? And within Making Better Happen, we've done a lot of things. And so part of that is consulting, training, coaching. You met Kevin yesterday. That part of Kevin McCarthy's speaker story is he came to me saying, I'm here and I need to get to here. And you heard the circumstances of his life. And he said, I need somebody who believes in me. And I asked him, tell me what that looks like, right? Let me hear your story. And he began to say, this is what that looks like for me. Now that path began not that long ago to where he's began to produce at a very, very high level. So for anybody that says, how do we engage with you? Reach out to me in that context. If you have a platform that you want to develop, if you have a book you want to be published through, those are the services that even myself or Kevin or others within the organization, we've done a lot of project management. People say, okay, how's this Making Better Happen philosophy work in project management? And we have another member of the team that's in process people. He is a Six Sigma black belt. He is he's that type of engineering minded, MBA minded. He's a UCLA MBA. Absolute walking assassin at process development. So that's, another component of the organization. I'm not that guy. So we knew developmentally we need that person on the team. So the Making Better Happen team, everywhere from how do I look and appear online? How do I look and appear in print? Graphics, online presence, that's a part of the service. Coaching and mentoring, while I do very little of that myself anymore, I do that at a level where we can influence a lot of people. We have people on the team that can do that. So, I would say if you feel like you're here and you want to get to here, we have some direct experience, and people should reach out to me in that way if they just want to learn more.
Perfect. So the best way is an email.
Yeah.
And I highly encourage, I'm so excited to go back and listen to this podcast again, so I can take away everything we said and apply it. And I love that what you say to yourself matters. And so reach out to Tom. Tom, a lot on the table still. I hope you want to come back sometime and pick up where we left off.
I'd love that.
This has been awesome. So.
I feel the same way. Thanks for the invitation. To get together with you guys in this place is a powerful deal for me. So.
Well, good. Well, thank you. That means a lot. thehuntforsuccess.com. Excuse me, Ryan, you didn't catch me. thehuntforsuccesspodcast.com.
There you go.
Is up and running. So jump on there. Listen to some of our old podcasts. The Hunt for Success podcast is our Instagram handle.
Yep.
And on Facebook.
Yep. And on iTunes.
And on iTunes. So
and on YouTube.
And on YouTube.
Look us up.
And live audience. No, we don't have a live audience.
We got one.
We have one.
We have one. You should cheer.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you very
Tom.
much.